In groups where there is nobody in the group that has the correct answer, the process of people articulating and thinking through the answer supports a depth of reflection and learning. So this is just a sort of diagrammatic process of how this works. Often in class, there actually may be three different sort of processes here. The middle one here is the primary process. But you can see in the case for when there is more than 70% of the class that gets it correct, sometimes what they'll do is they'll skip the whole process and go directly to an explanation. In the case where less than 30% are getting it correct, it may be worth revisiting before you actually go through the process. But this is the classroom context. So that's the sort of background theory of the tool. I just want to talk a little bit about why we decided to actually develop this tool. So when UBC became a charter member, one of the things we committed to was to do development on the platform. And we wanted to do something that was significant and had value to the community. So we sort of reflected on our context first. So UBC has had a long history of transformation of education, particularly in the sciences. So we had this, the Carl Wyman Science Education Initiative, which is over 10 years old now. It's a multi-year program to transform science education. And one of the key features of this transformation has been the peer instruction process. So it made sense for us. So over 170 courses have been transformed during the last 10 years. The other thing we reflected on was the MOOC context, and the challenge of the MOOC context is that you have such a huge number of students, it's impossible for instructors to engage students directly. The other thing is, of course, that it's because the students are all over the world, it's very hard to support synchronous interaction. At the Global Forum in 2014, there was a working group that was for the instructional design and pedagogy working group that was sort of a breakout session, and thinking about what sort of pedagogical innovations were possible within the platform. And this particular question, can we take an example of a pedagogy that we know works really well in a face-to-face environment and recreate it in a fully online environment? So that was the sort of the task that they thought about. And so we decided that we'd try to do this online peer instruction process, but rather than creating synchronous groups, which you typically have in a classroom, that we would utilize, do this asynchronously and utilize the students' answer rationale that they write in as a proxy for that discussion. Okay, so now we're going to actually do a demo.
Okay, so I would like to invite you to open your laptop or phone and go to this URL. This is script that registers you to the IDEX instance hosted on UBC. It's our dev instance. And it will register you as an anonymous user, so you don't have to put in any information. And they will enroll you to a course that has set up for the peer instruction. So I'll leave it up for a little bit more time. And so once you go to that URL, you should be able to see a course and assignment with stock pictures. So hopefully everyone loves stock. So that's an assignment for the peer instruction. So you now are logged in as a student. So there is some instructions or the content for the course. Then you can briefly look at them and read them. Then if you go to the bottom of the page, go to assignment 1, and go to the bottom of the page, you will be able to see the peer instruction question. Yeah, so you can just do it. So it's basically the process that Derek just described. So first you give your answers and rationale for your answers. So your rationale will be recorded and put into a pool. So other people may see your rationale if they submit after you. And then you are given a few other people's answer. So we seeded a few answers so that you can see. So yeah, and then you are given a chance to revise your answer and rationale. So I would like to bring up the.
So you are all able to do it? You can see it?
Reading and I have the answer.
Take your time. So this is a graph that will be generated after you submit your final answer. But I would like to see give you the idea of how the distribution changes. So right now this is the default one, the one we seeded status. And if I refresh, hopefully, yeah, it's working. So it looks like a lot of people are selecting option 1 to 3 for their first attempt. And then a lot of people switch to the option 2. So I'll do the refresh again. So I'll give you more, maybe 30 seconds. Then we'll continue. Okay, so you can still, if you are interested, you can still do your assignment, but I'm going to continue. So basically, let me refresh. So once you finish, you should see a similar graph. May not be the same, exactly same number. So this graph will move when the students submitting their answers. So as you can see, there are a lot of people selecting option 1, 3 in their original answer, and then switch to option 2. So in this graph, the option 2 is the correct answer. So that's basically the workflow for the student using the peer instruction. So let me go to the next, switch to the slides. So there are some key features in this tool. So it's asynchronous, two-stage multi-choice question. So as you can see, there are a little bit different from the classic environment that was used in the classroom. We chose asynchronous because it's running online and it's built for MOOC. So it's a little bit hard for students to be online at the same time. So there are some trade-off and choice made during the design process. it supports multiple algorithms. So the algorithms are used for selecting student answers to be shown to other students. So right now we have two algorithms implemented, a random one and a simple one. Simple one is just basically selecting random answers for each option. We're planning to do additional algorithm, more sophisticated ones that maybe scoring the student answers and picking the most persuasive ones. There are a lot of things can be done in the designing the algorithm. The number of so the instructor can set the number of answers. So that's allow instructor to customize the how many answers student can see. And it also supports seeding. So instructor can seed answers. Instructor typed in answers in the question. So when, for example, first student come in, if we don't have a seeding, they will see nothing. So that allows student to see, go through the same process for even early students. Grading, so we support grading for the gradebook, edX gradebook. So right now only completion grade. So when student complete the assignment, they will get a point. HTML and image input. So instructor can set up image or HTML for their questions and options. So basically, some of the physics professors, they put in the graphs as the options, so student can see which graph is describing the question or answering the question. Statistics. So as you can see, the graph at the end. So that's a distribution of the answers that students select. So, and also internationalization support. So that's a feature contributed by from edX team. So that allow different students speaking different language, seeing different text. Also event tracking. So we are emitting events for learning analytics. So there will be more information covered later. And this XBlock is available on edX and Edge. So anyone that are interested in can use it. And if you're running on your own hosted environment, you can also install that XBlock. It's open source. Okay, so since the Wi-Fi is working, so I'm gonna show some live pictures, live screens for the instructor UI. So this is an instructor interface when they're setting up the peer instruction tool. So they can set problem weighting. Question text can be HTML. They can add images and different image positions, and set up the character limitation of the answers. And those are the options that the instructor can set up. And specify correct answers and a rationale or a feedback that to be given to the student at the end, so that the student can see why this answer is correct.
Question? So
Yeah.
you say you can have images as your answer options in the question?
Yes.
I thought that was a future feature, but you already can.
Yeah. So this is the algorithm that I was talking about. And you can also set how many answers that student will see on the second step. And this part is a seeding, so your instructor can set a few seeds that start up the process. So that's a that's a instructor interface. Okay, let's go back so we can skip those. And this is a sorry, excuse me. Events we're emitting. Right now, we're only emitting like 3 events. One is when the question is accessed. The second and third one are the when students submit their answers. So one for original, one for revised. So this is an example of the events. So I highlighted a few points, like in red, that people might be interested. So the first one is the name. So that's a type of the event. So what kind of action student did. The rest, the second one, the third one are answer and rationale. So which answer student select and the full text of the rationale student put in. So that's give the researchers that ability to research the student behavior and doing all kind of interesting things. Yeah, so because of time, we'll skip the development process and I'll hand it back to Derek.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the feedback we've had about the use of the tool. So when we originally did the pitch for this presentation, we expected to be able to have some data analysis of how the system had been used, but for various reasons we don't actually have anything substantial yet. So what I'm talking about initially is really more anecdotal. So when we ask instructors about the use of the tools, they tell us they like it. They tell us that the students, in terms of the students' feedback, that they like it, that it certainly is causing a greater degree of time on task, but we haven't really done analysis yet about the effectiveness of the from a data perspective. However, we have done a number of usability studies as we've developed the tool. And as part of the usability studies, we've been collecting some qualitative feedback from students about their experience of using that tool as we've taken them through the usability process. So here's just a few things to highlight. Thanks. We'll go very fast now. So did the students find it helpful? The majority said they did find it helpful. That's to see the other students' answers. Did they like the before and after charts? Were they useful? So again, the majority of students felt that they were useful. Did it actually affect that? Did it change their result? Did they make some differences? So only about less than 50% are actually changing their answer. But still, you're looking at 40-something% there that actually said that they changed on the basis of having seen other students' answers, or at least that they felt more confident about their own answer. So I'm going to skip these. This is some student quotes about what they found effective about the tool. So very quickly, this is just anecdotal primarily, we've shown you right now, but we are starting an evaluation process, actually looking not only at the peer instruction tool, but also at another tool called Delight or Daylight, however you say that, which is a very similar sort of asynchronous peer instruction tool, although it's an LTI one, it's a slightly different process. So there is some work with MIT, edX, Harvard, and UBC are going to go through a process of evaluation, which we expect to have some results by the end of the year. Again, really quickly, so these are the sorts of things we're expecting to look at. Measure of impact. Does it affect the number of time on pages? How often do students switch? Positive switching to the correct answer, negative switching away from the correct answer. The quality of the answers, doing some analysis of the rationale pieces themselves. Impact on persistence in other parts of the course. Does it make a difference in the way that they interact in other parts of the course? Time on task. look at the measure on learning. Can we correlate it to some sort of performance metrics in terms of the grades or some other aspect within the course? Perceptions, the students' perceptions of the value of the tool and their sense of competence they're gaining from using the tool. And then some design features, what works well and what, in terms of the questions that are asked. I'm just going to see if there's anything else I need to follow. Well, just really quickly, we should cover some these are things that are coming soon. So we are doing grading. I'll talk to this really quickly. So we are doing grading for the correct answer as well. Additional algorithms. So ability for students to ask for additional student answers. So being able to iterate through multiple of these processes, flagging inappropriate answers, enhancing the event emitting, and exploring the option of perhaps actually having a synchronous integration as well. So that's the development team, and I'll leave that last slide. So any questions?
Lunch doesn't start until 12:15, so if people are willing to stick around a little bit past 12:10, we have about 8 minutes for questions.
But we are, as I said, we are really interested in talking to you if you're interested in using the tool or you want to be part of the evaluation project or you want to make some suggestions for changes as well. So, yes.
Could you talk a little bit about when you actually implement it, sort of what kind of timeline do you actually, oh, hey, look, there's a mic. Can't tell. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of timeline you actually use for the asynchronous, like, is it 24 hours? Is it a week? Like, what does the actual process look like when you're running it in a course?
It really depends. It depends on the nature of the course. So one of the courses we're running is actually a self-paced course. And because we were able to seed the student answers, there's no need for students to all be doing it within a certain period of time. Right, so the key piece that's kind of missing from the typical peer instruction process is this oversight of an instructor who's actually looking at the results and saying, I need to do some more explanation here, or saying, as I showed before, sometimes in the class they actually don't go through the whole process if it's not needed. So having it more time-bound will allow a greater ability to sort of give that oversight and then interact from an instructor perspective. But obviously we're trying to also deal with the MOOC world where that's a lot harder to deal with. And so the evaluation process will hopefully help us to see how effective this is without those additional pieces in place. Yep.
It seems to me in the MOOC world that you're going to have a lot of answers, and how do you pick which one to show? And it seems like you're rewarding somebody who's been very effective at getting people to switch to the wrong answer is a very valuable one to show often, right? Because it makes people think more. Because when they get convinced to the wrong answer, and then also to reward people for getting the things that actually get people to switch to the right answer. Because you should be able to, if you do your algorithm right, be able to kind of float those and score how
Yep.
people's answers affected people's answers.
Yep. That's a comment, right? One of the things we thought about was, and how do you actually, one of the reasons we've been cautious about going around the grading piece is that because the effectiveness of, the argument is the effectiveness of the process itself is just the participation, not necessarily getting the right answer, we've been a bit cautious about actually implementing a grading that grades on the right answer. But nonetheless, there is that pressure to do so. So that's why we're also doing that.
Yes, I want to work with you on this.
Great.
To your point, I think a really great option to have as a final process that we don't get to have in the classroom except in sort of without any formalism is showing people a few samples of explanations of the right answers and having them give a like, because we know the research says that novices understand novice speak better than they do instructor speak. So I think that would help you seed trying to decide what kinds of things to throw in there, et cetera. And also, I would encourage you to hold the line on not giving grades for correctness, because we've done the research and shown that's a great way to make your instruction go well.
Right. Okay. Well, it'll only be an option anyhow. But
Well,
so
I know, but don't let faculty do bad things. We do bad stuff all the time. Just keep us from doing it.
Great.
Are all the answer for instructor and students anonymous?
Yes,
Every time.
yes. Yes, I mean, the event emitting will give you information about who the student is as well, right? So from an instructor who's actually got the data download, they can actually figure that out, but it's anonymous for the students, yes.
In terms of answer selection algorithms, have you thought about incorporating student feedback about which answers they found most helpful? Like, I'm imagining upvote in Stack Overflow or something like that.
We have, and we had that on our list as well. And I know that the other tool we mentioned, the Delight tool, I mean, that's one of the things that you actually do is you actually vote on the rationale you think is the best. So it's not just about the answer. So we have thought about that as well. We haven't really gone beyond thinking about it, but that's a good idea.
Have you thought at all about taking out, the option to take out requiring a correct answer and just having it be usable for peer grading or for peer assessment, but really for just, generating ideas?
Yep.
And helping learners think about what other people are coming up with, and going back and sort of revising an idea, whether or not it has a correct answer or not?
Yes, we have. In fact, in the evaluation process, we're thinking of actually having those two different scenarios. The one which is this classic process where it is a right answer, and another where there isn't a right answer. And it's just really about exploring options. I just look, even if we're going through the slides today, we need to change some of the wording because it says correct answer at the moment, but there's no reason why it doesn't have to be a correct answer. It just could be, in fact, you don't necessarily have to have an instructor feedback, or you could have an instructor feedback that's just a general one without actually saying this is the correct answer.
Got two questions. One, the XBlock only has one question per XBlock that you put on there? That's the limit.
At the moment it is, yep.
Okay.
But
So
it-
you couldn't select several or create several questions and then have them look at the questions?
You can create multiple XBlock on the one page, right? Yeah. So
But you have to, okay.
Yeah, but so what you're saying is them have multiple questions before they start to see the next stage.
Right.
Right.
Right, before they start, selecting or
Yeah.
doing the consensus.
We haven't. And one of the things we have looked at is not just having a multi-choice option, but actually supporting, you select all that apply, or something like that. It does make it significantly more complex in how you do the next stages, but we have explored that as an option as well. But specifically to your point, no, we haven't thought about that yet. But that's interesting.
My other one, would it be possible for you, instead of being an individual answer, be a consensus answer, where you can have a whole group of people decide what the right answer is, and that's their answer for the whole group instead of just the one person?
I'm not sure. I mean, in terms of when you see the distribution at the end. So can you explain what you mean there?
Individual answers
Yeah.
for each person.
Yes.
But if you could have a consensus of the whole group saying, okay, the correct answer is this, and then see if as a group, as a knowledgeable group, if they got the correct answer.
There's not usually enough people online at the same time to do that.
So really doing it as a group exercise. So the group itself is doing the. I mean, yeah. I'm not sure how to model it online, but I see what you're getting at.
Because
But-
sometimes getting together and talking about it, they get to a certain
Yes.
answer.
Yeah.
But here, it's still an individual answer. Okay, I chose this, depending on what everybody said, but it's still my.
It's rather than sort of saying let's vote on it, and then the best of that vote, 80% say this.
It's not really a vote, it's a consensus.
It's a consensus process. Yeah.
Everybody chooses
Yeah. Yeah.
one. It's another type of
Right. Yeah.
question.
Well, we'll have a think about that.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Derek and Dan. So lunch is provided now, 12:15, and I've been told that slides for all of the presentations, as long as the presenters are made available, will be made available to all conference goers, and we'll be sending out an announcement after the conference